And now, how to be orange the assimilation exam. The following questions are taken from the website ntr.nl, the Nationale Inburgeringstoets. These are the closest I could find to the actual questions I had in my course. To pass the test, you need 5.5 out of 10. Sounds easy, but there's one group of people who traditionally have a hard time: the Dutch. The online exam even gives you some examples of how some famous Dutch people have scored. Jacques de Ancona, TV journalist, scored a 4.7. Howard Komproe, comedian, 4.6. Victoria Koblenko, actress, 4.0. None of them achieved 5.5. Now is your chance to prove you're more Dutch than these famous Dutch people. 1 year, the Dutch assimilation test appeared on TV. The winners were Chinese food delivery guys. Many of the questions were not covered in my class, nor were they covered in standard Dutch education, apparently, nor are they particularly relevant. But is that a bad thing? In any given classroom full of people taking this exam, there's a real sense of solidarity as everyone, including the examiner, looks around and shrugs. I have no idea. Of course, there's always been controversy around the exam. Recently, a researcher from Radboud University found that the entire process is counterproductive, in part because the exam questions are so subjective. Yes, they're subjective. That's what makes them so perfect. A simple analysis of each question reveals more about the Dutch mentality than the exam ever intended. Sample question, translation Google Shapiro. What or who is commemorated on the 4th of May? A. All war victims. B. The beginning of World War II. Or C. The end of World War II. The answer, A. Most Dutch people know the 4th of May is not about the end of the war, that's the 5th of May. But many Dutch people are unclear on who exactly is being commemorated. Sometimes it's all war victims, including the Germans. Sometimes it's for everyone but the Germans. It keeps changing. But one thing that doesn't change: at 8 p.m., shut up. Perhaps the more practical question would be, how do the Dutch commemorate war victims on the 4th of May? Answer with 2 minutes silence at 8 p.m. A friend of mine arrived in the Netherlands in the month of April, and by the time the 4th of May rolled around, he was happy he could just navigate the laundromat. And there he was, putting coins into a laundromat dryer and successfully turning it on. But at 8 p.m., an older woman came up. She opened the door to the dryer and turned it off. My friend made it clear that he was using the dryer, deposited more coins, and turned the dryer back on. Again, the woman hustled over, opened the door, and turned the dryer off. My friend was now getting angry since, again, he'd lost his money. He yelled at the woman in his best Dutch, but she simply gestured for him to be quiet. Enraged, he put more coins into the dryer, and he found himself now grappling with this old woman as she tried to open the dryer door. She kept pointing at the clock and saying, "Shh, shh," and then suddenly she gave up. My friend felt victorious. Only later did he realize he was aggressively keeping this Dutch woman from observing her annual 2 minutes of silence. At least she wasn't Jewish. The ironic thing is, my friend was. It can be difficult to figure out the Dutch. Even the Dutch can't figure out the Dutch. You can see how each of these following questions is essential knowledge. How did nutmeg first arrive in the Netherlands? A. From our colony in the Antilles. B. From our colony in Indonesia. Or C. From our colony in Suriname. The answer is B. But the true answer is, who cares? Are you really going to kick someone out of the country for not knowing where nutmeg comes from? Where is the tulip bulb industry the biggest? A. In Flevoland. B. In Noord-Holland. Or C. In Zuid-Holland? Answer B. Hopefully, if you're taking this test, you're no longer picking tulip bulbs. And approximately how long does it take to travel by train without delays from Amsterdam to Enschede? A. 1 hour. B. 2 hours. C. 3 hours. The correct answer is B, but for anyone getting this question wrong, you should be able to follow up with a rebuttal. Approximately how long does it take to travel by high-speed Vira train without delays from Amsterdam to Brussels? A. Under 10 years. B. Over 10 years. C. We may never know. The next section, every question tells a story. It's not about answering the questions. The real lesson is the logic behind the questions. Your colleague from work is getting married. You're not invited to the wedding, but you want to do something nice. What do? A. You give a gift, for example, something for the kitchen. B. You give an envelope with money. Or C. You send a card. Correct answer, C. I have asked this question to hundreds of Dutch people, and when I ask why, the answer almost universally is because it's cheap. Next, you are sitting with a colleague on a terrace. At the table next to you, there are two men kissing and caressing each other. You are bothered by this. What must you do? A. Remain seated and act as if you are not offended. B. You tell the men that they should go sit somewhere else. Or C. Say loudly to your colleague what you really think about homosexuality. Answer A. What do you know? Doe maar gewoon. My favorite part of this question is the assumption. You were bothered by this. Personally, I'm not bothered. But for the sake of the question, I have to be. And after getting into the role of an offended person, perhaps C would actually be the most honest answer. But no! To answer the question correctly, you have to pretend to be someone who is bothered by this, who is pretending not to be bothered by this. Incidentally, most Dutch people that I've met would say something. After all, it's a terrace, and they're not just kissing, they are kissing and caressing. I would not be surprised to hear some Dutch people say, "Hey, doe normaal," or "get a room." This question could have been written by George Orwell. The real lesson here seems to be don't commit a thought crime. But then again, homophobia in the Netherlands is a problem. I once saw an interview on AT5. Two Dutch Moroccan kids were asked what they thought of the gay pride parade. One of them said, "Yeah, someone should tell them to go back where they came from." Technically, that would be the closet. There should be a better way of making such a statement sound ridiculous, and perhaps instead of this test question, they should just play this kid's video clip. Next, you smell gas in your rental apartment. What should you do? A. Open all the windows and doors and call the utility company. B. Close all the windows and doors and call an accredited installation company. C. Close the gas valve and call the local housing department. Correct answer is A. There are some very useful tips here, but they're not in the same answer. So if you smell gas, open all the windows, if you shut off the gas valve, and if you call the utilities, you're very safe. But according to the exam, you're not Dutch. Next, you are cleaning out your deep fryer and you want to dispose of the frying oil. You always use liquid frying oil. What should you do with it? A. Flush it down the toilet. B. Put it out with the rest of the garbage. C. Deliver it to the chemical disposal. Answer B. And I admit, I got this one wrong. Perhaps it's because I've never had a deep fryer. I admit it. I'm not that Dutch. But again, the question assumes you always use frying oil. This is either because I'm Dutch or because I'm non-Western and uneducated. Either way, as someone who's nutritionally and environmentally responsible, I feel left out. And the most unfortunate part is that the best answer isn't even on there. Turn your used frying oil into biodiesel for KLM. Next, the neighbors on your street have placed a wooden stork in their garden. They've just had a baby. You are friendly with the neighbors and they always greet you. What should you do first? A. Put a greeting card in their postbox. B. Visit your neighbors to see the baby. C. Wait a few days and then visit the baby. Answer A. In other words, you never drop in on your neighbors for any reason. You can look through their front windows and clearly see everything they're doing, but you're not allowed to interact. Voyeurism only. Even if your neighbors are very friendly, and even if they say, "Oh, you must come over sometime," you must wait for them to pull out an agenda and say, "How is next July on Thursday the 17th? Next, you've just had your fourth child, a healthy baby. You receive an invitation to the pediatric clinic. What should you do? A. You go with your child to the pediatric clinic. B. You don't go because it's not required. Or C. You don't go because you know by now how to care for your children. Answer A. My favorite part of this question, you have 4 children. Why is it necessary to assume I have 4 children? Is it part of Dutch culture to have lots of babies? Clearly it's not. Or are we assuming that I'm probably uneducated and I have nothing better to do than popping out progeny like there's no tomorrow? On a related note, there was a question on the test taken by the Dutch author Rodan Al-Ghalidi. How long after a miscarriage does a woman resume menstruation? What's that got to do with cultural assimilation? Somewhere there must be an obstetrician's exam asking who painted the night watch. The Dutch Ministry of Sociale Zaken was careful to announce that they did not develop this question. Rather, it was developed by an independent agency called ICE. ICE. That's also the agency that provides high-speed rail service to Germany, proving again that immigration and German trains are a bad combination. Next, you're walking down the street and your girlfriend receives unwelcome attention from another man. What do? A. Let her solve it herself. B. Both ignore it. Or C. He gets a smack and she does too. Answer B. But thank you for assuming that I might want to hit my girlfriend. And, of course, the most Dutch answer would be, if you're walking down the street and your girlfriend receives unwelcome attention from another man, charge him money. Dear reader, or in this case, listener, of course you know that How to Be Orange the book comes with many illustrations and a series of Dutch product names and signs that are very hilarious and not photoshopped, such as the Town of Lies, an envelope called Tap Cum Bag, or the restaurant called You Fuck Shawarma. You're gonna have to get the book for that, people. And now comes the Dutch Assimilation Exam, but stay tuned till the very end because there's something special.